Welcome back to the Morning Breadcast. I am Mark Christick, your host with Digging for End Time Truths, and we are into the book of Jude, and we are about at the 4th or 5th verse. We are going to kind of delve into the examples that Jude gives. So, quick recap. Jude was the half-brother of Jesus, and he writes this epistle, and he's telling true believers, he addresses it to true believers, those that are sanctified. And he says to contend earnestly for the faith. And what we've gone over the last couple of days is, why did he say that? He said, because there are men that have crept in unaware. Men or women, regardless. They bring in doctrines that tell you that it's okay to sin. He gives you a license to sin. Jude explains that they took their place in these local assemblies, and they have entered into the church and have turned the grace of God into a license to sin. And the words denying the Lord here, I believe, mean that they denied him not just in word, but in deed. In other words, look at what these people are saying and look at their lives. Are they just living lavishly and they don't care? They preach the gospel, then they go on with their life and they're caught in a life of luxury and sin? Be careful. All I'm saying is be careful, because Jude tells us here to contend earnestly for the faith, because some people have crept in unaware and are telling you that it's okay to live, carnally and fleshly, and that's not the case. So yesterday, what happened? We went over verse 5, which talks about the first example. It's a corporate example of a group of people that were called by God. He pulled them out of the world, but yet they didn't live for him or didn't believe in his promises, and God took them out. He says in verse 5, he says, I want to remind you, though you once knew this, that the Lord, having saved the people out of the land of Egypt, afterward destroyed those who did not believe. So he's mentioning the nation of Israel. He said God took them out of the world, took them out of Egypt, and he said, brought them out into the wilderness and said, here's the promised land. A few people said, we can do it, Joshua and Caleb, and the others said, we can't do it. And God said, he just left them right there. He said, if you can't believe and live for me, that's the number one example of apostasy, okay? Not believing God can do what he said he can do, okay? That was the first example. Here's the second example, and this one is going to talk about a group of angels that did the same thing, okay? So I know we start talking about angels and people kind of freak out because you can't see them and you don't even know that they're there. Listen, the entire Bible talks about beings that you can't see. They're in a different plane, a different realm, but they clearly affect what's going on here. And God says in Romans that, the world is created so that you're without excuse. There's things in the world that you can't see. You can't see wind. You can't see gravity. You can't see the air you breathe, but yet it's there. So God says there are spirit beings that are out there, okay? So this is another group of beings, celestial beings, that were once in the presence of God, and then they left the presence of God to serve themselves, okay? We're going to read verse 6, and here it goes in Jude. This is the second group, and he says, and the angels who did not keep their proper domain, but left their own abode, he has reserved in everlasting chains under darkness for the judgment of the great day. Okay? So this verse is very revealing in a few ways. The first, which is the New King James word for abode or habitation in the King James Version, is the Greek word okaterion. So what does that word mean? It means the dwelling place or the celestial suit that they were wearing. Okay, it's like our body is our suit to hold our spirit. These angels stripped themselves of their celestial suits and went down to the earth to cohabitate with women. Okay, and this is the whole story of Genesis 6. So what is Jude saying? Listen, here's the second group of people that God is using as an example. Second group of celestial beings, okay, that God is using as an example. Jude is giving this as an example to us in the Word of God. He says they were in the presence of God. They were they took off their suits, their celestial suits, and they went down and cohabitated with women on the earth. Okay. And God said they left it, and they are held in chains, reserved in everlasting chains under darkness for the judgment of the great day. In other words, God immediately judged them. So here's the thing. Second example. If you live for yourself, if you're hungry for yourself, even though you have received of God's grace, apostasy means you walk away from it and you go serve yourself. And that is a very dangerous place to be. And what is Jude telling us? This whole book, contend for the faith. Stand strong. I'm just going to say it all week. I'm going to say, keep your nose in the word, keep your knees on the ground, and keep your ear to the Spirit. And we will see you again next time on the Morning Breadcast.